Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and I am so excited. I want to introduce a new segment. It's going to be a new live segment, regular, here at Second Baptist with Reverend Dr. Michael Nabors, and it's called Nabors Speak. We got such great feedback from his last live where we talked about Trump and things that are going on, and I just really feel that it's important that we have these conversations. And him being a president of NAACP here in Evanston and very respected pastor here in Evanston. You know, when you have questions and concerns, we all go to different people. I believe in going to my pastor when I have some questions and, give me, his perspective. I just love hearing Nabors, his perspective on things. And if any of you have attended Second Baptist or even just gone to his personal Facebook page, you'll see he is very passionate about what is going on in our country right now. And, opening our eyes and provoking us to think about some things and to take action as well. So today's question on Nabors Speaks is why or how the Republican Congress and some people in the Black community still support Donald Trump no matter what comes out about this man. They have got his back. And I don't know about you all, but I am trying to figure out why and how. So, Pastor Nabors.
Yes.
Break it down for us, please.
Well, Malika, you're asking a wonderful question, and I almost think that it's $1 million question, especially for those who are naysayers and who are not supporters of Donald Trump and never have been. We're looking at statistics that are coming out now. Earlier today, I was looking at one of the news channels that talked about how literally befuddling this question is, that even after the horrendous week that Trump had last week regarding Helsinki, regarding the latest information on Michael Cohen and his actually taping remarks that Trump made about paying off a prostitute. All of that information is public. But the latest statistics and polls reveal that, if anything, Trump's base is either as solid as it was in the weeks before, or that support has actually risen. So among Republicans, the support for Donald Trump after last week is still above 85%, 85% Republicans. And of course, for Democrats, it's just the opposite. I think that the number of Democrats that are supporting Trump is probably somewhere around 5 or 6%. So the opposite of that would be, over 90% are opposed to Trump. That's even before last week. So the question that you ask about Republicans in Congress, why is it that they are continuing to support Trump? I think everybody has their theories, but since I'm a lover of history, I often go back into history and look at certain leaders who led their nations and their countries, who were leaders that were very suspect in terms of their personal agenda, in terms of their dictatorship, in terms of how they often ruined masses of people with decisions that they made. In every situation, masses of people were supportive. I mean, if you go back to Adolf Hitler, the German population were overwhelmingly supportive of Adolf Hitler, and that was for a myriad of reasons. But one of the examples that I like, Malika, is that when George Wallace was running for governor of Alabama, the second time, and this was after he already had this horrible reputation in terms of being a segregationist, anti-integrationist, a racist and all of that. He won overwhelmingly, but he also got a significant population of the segment of the Black population who voted for him. And I remember watching one, this is of course later, I was a child, but later I remember watching a reporter asking an African American who voted for Wallace during this time period, why in the world did you ever vote for Wallace? And his response was, you should have seen the other candidate. And so there's this idea or this thought, the lesser of two evils. And so when I think about African Americans who are supporting Trump even after all of this, I don't think it's the lesser of two evils. I think that there is a segment of African Americans in our country who have always been very conservative, very fundamental. They've always been very, very Republican. I think it's a small percentage. I think that when you talk about blacks that are still supporting Trump, or I've supported him from the very beginning, I tend to believe that percentage is well under 5% of the African American population. So it's almost like it's an anomaly. But I think we have to remember, blacks have never been so monolithic that they all voted for the same person, or that they all voted for the same party. There's always been certain perspectives and divisions among people of color. The Republicans in Congress, that's another piece. Why in the world are they continuing to support Trump? Well, I have a couple of theories, and one of my theories is a bold one, but I tend to think that maybe Donald Trump and his small eclectic group of supporters who are supporting him almost like he's a strong man rather than a president must have something on the Republican Party in general. That the Republican Party in general has done something that has been that is so bad and that is so manipulative that there is this sort of quiet unknown threat that if you do not support Donald Trump on this issue or that issue, then we're going to bring this to light, so that almost the whole Republican Party comes caving in. That's one of the theories that I have, and I don't have any concrete evidence, or facts about it. It's just a sense of why are these people acting the way that they do. Another theory that I have that I think is much more deliberate and much more specific. I believe that Donald Trump has really tapped into the Republican Party's conservative vein that is so anti-everything that is not Anglo-Saxon. There is a prevalent discrimination and racism and anti-ethnic group that exists in the Republican Party. It really does, and I think as a result of that, when you think about the people that he brought on board initially, starting with Steve Bannon and Breitbart and all of these conservative groups that have a history of being anti-African American, anti-Semitic, anti-Latino, anti-Asian Pacific Islander, anti-everything, but white. That came into the White House. It was actually in the White House during the first months of Trump's presidency, and they began to shape policy. They shaped foreign policy. Steve Bannon didn't even have a specific title. He was simply an advisor, to the president. But the worst kind of advisor, and an anti everything. He's absolutely a white nationalist. He believes in white supremacy, and you had him closer to the president than most of the Republican congressmen who were in Congress, whether they're senators or whether they're House of Representatives. And I think that whatever message they gave him, and I think that whatever support group they were able to rally, so it's not just Steve Bannon and Breitbart, it's Rupert Murdoch and Fox News, and all of them together, who are these really white conservative folks who are adamant about supporting Trump. I think that the underlying piece has to do with discrimination and racism. And this is my third and last theory. The third theory that I have regarding why Republicans, which is a predominantly white party, are supportive of Trump after everything that he's done. In my estimation, I believe more than ever that the reason why they are supportive of Trump is because they have this firm belief that this is white people's last stand. That if they lose the presidency with Trump, and that the support of Trump goes by the wayside, and Democrats are elected with this broad-based, multicultural rainbow coalition, then whites will never again be at a seat of authority and power in the White House and in Washington, D.C. If you look at the numbers, the numbers suggest that people of color are, if they don't outnumber whites right now, they will very, very soon. So I think that they're looking at this almost like General Custer and, you know, the last stand. This is the last stand. And I wrote something in my Facebook. You said something about that. I wrote something recently, and I said I tend to think that racism is so strong and so prevalent that whites would rather give the keys to our country to Russia than to see it run and run effectively by black, brown, tan, and yellow people. That's how deep-seated racism is in this country. And the reason why Trump is doing what he wants to do right now, it is because white people, even of goodwill, now I'm not talking about the racists, white people of goodwill will not face the fact that racism is as deep and as strong and as mighty as it ever has been in this country. And until we deal with the reality of racism and its effects, and I'm not talking about one person being a racist, but I'm talking about racism that has become systemized, racism in our institutions, racism in our structures. Until we deal with that, I think we're going to continue to see this burgeoning support of Trump, because whites believe that their way of life and their culture is about to go the way of the dinosaur.
That is deep. I don't know if you watched The View.
Yes, indeed.
I'm a fan. You saw what happened with Whoopi and
I did indeed.
Hero.
Yeah, the judge, yes.
I mean, and Whoopi's getting the backlash for it.
Yes.
Not Hero,
Right.
but Whoopi is. How do you explain that? People want Whoopi fired. But I mean, I felt Whoopi's passion. She's like fed up. She was like, you know what? Enough is enough. And the lady was disrespectful towards Whoopi on Whoopi's stage.
Right.
You know,
Right.
how do we combat something like that? So if we really express our passion just in reaction or response to someone who supports Trump or just a bona fide racist, and we get the backlash, how do we deal with that?
Well, another great question, Malika, and my response to that is that what we have to do as people of color, and I'm going to say now, I envision a coalition that is not just African American. I enview a coalition of brown and tan and black skinned people in this country coming together. And so that will include Asian Americans, African Americans, Latinos, folks from Africa, folks from Haiti, you know, from all over the globe who have settled into this country, coming together and recognizing that this kind of backlash is going to exist if we take a stand. But if we are able to come together, then when there is a backlash, then we have the potential to support each other. So that if somebody comes after Whoopi and somebody comes after her job, if 1 million people go to the studio where View is taught and say, well, whatever you do, you are not going to allow our sister to be fired because she is speaking on our behalf. So whoever is pressuring you to do that, it's not going to happen. Well, that's power. You know, I've always learned or been taught, you know, that there's two kinds of power. There are two kinds of power that exist in this world. And one kind of power, okay, is a power of authority and wealth. That's those people that are elected and those people who are just wealthy beyond most of our wildest imaginations. The other kind of power, Malika, is the power of sheer numbers, of volumes of people, people of goodwill, people who want to make the world better, people who believe in loving their neighbor as well as loving their enemy. You know, it's those people that believe in beloved community coming together and being supportive of each other. So we have to say to View and to the network, you are going to you're going to leave her alone. It's very much like to me when President Obama was in office, and Obama had so much backlash from the time that the congressman shouted out "You lie" in one of his State of the Union addresses very early on. You know, he had such backlash, but you will know that people of color and people that were supportive of Barack Obama got to the point where they said, you are not going to harm Barack Obama. He is our president. And of course, he was voted in again overwhelmingly because of that support system. So the question that you ask is a good one, but I think that we have to get fear out of the picture. We have to stop being afraid of what the backlash might be. And one of the things that I love, Malika, and that I appreciate even about this segment is that there's power in the Black church. And one of the things that I love more than anything else about being pastor of Second Baptist Church is that I have a stage and a foundation upon which the people in this church allow me to articulate and express my views about what I see God doing in human history right now. No matter what anybody says, no matter what the mayor might say, or the governor might say, or the president might say, nobody can stop that capacity for me to articulate what I believe from my heart, except the people who are at Second Baptist Church. And they've given me that freedom. And I believe that other clergy and other African American churches have to do the same with their clergy as well. I think a lot of people believe what you and I believe about what's happening in our country, but I think that they have been silenced because of the backlash that you're talking about right now. Well, I haven't been silenced. So I'm going to keep on speaking up and speaking out and standing up and preaching and shouting and making pronouncements, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yes. And your thoughts to, more questions are coming to me as we're speaking. Tavis Smiley,
Yes.
and Cornel West. If they were sitting here at the table right now, I don't know what your views are on them. I have my views about them.
Yes.
If they were sitting at this table with us right now here in your office, what would you say to them?
Well, I would have to approach them independently, Malika, because even though we sort of think about them as a tag team because they were together for so long, I think that there's such discrepancies among both of them that I think that Tavis Smiley is a sort of, he's a public personality. And I think that to a large degree, he's a showman as well. He had his own television show and, he's an author and all of that. But I do not put him nearly at the same level as the public intellectual Cornel West. They're very, very different. So you talk about a dog and pony show, whatever you want to call it, I think that Tavis Smiley was the spin master, and he was the one to do all of the PR when they were touring together and all of that. But I think that Cornel West was the deep thinker. He was the philosopher. He was the one that was able to look at social conditions and to look at political processes and then to make judgments and to articulate opinions. Now, this is what I believe, and the reason why we're not hearing from them regarding Trump right now.
Yeah, they've been real quiet.
They've been real quiet. and we heard from them in a very pejorative and negative way when it came to President Barack Obama. Well, if you go back, we all know that it didn't start that way. That initially, Tavis Smiley and Cornel West were avid supporters of Barack Obama. They were on the campaign trail for Barack Obama in his first campaign to win the presidency. And something happened, and I don't know whether this is urban myth or not, but somewhere along the line, Cornel West felt like he was not a part of the inner circle of President Obama, that he may not have been invited to a particular gathering or whatever, or maybe wasn't able to get him by phone. There's so many different rumors out about what happened, but as a result of that relationship not only soured, but it just absolutely grew cold. And before,
so it was ego.
I think it's ego, absolutely ego. And I think before you knew it, then not only was it a cold relationship, but West began to then speak negatively about Obama, began to say some of the negative and pejorative things about what Obama was doing and what he wasn't doing, whether it was international global policy that was affecting countries with people of color, or whether it was something that was domestic and how he wasn't helping his own people in the United States. All that information started coming out from the perspective of West. And Tavis Smiley, jumped on board. And I don't know if you know this, but as a result of that, there was a great big divide between the two public intellectuals, Cornel West and Michael Eric Dyson. So those two who were mentor and mentee at one time, Michael earned his PhD studying under Cornel West at Princeton University. At the time, I was a young pastor at First Baptist Church in Princeton. I knew them both, by the way, and I knew Michael very, very well. So now they have no dialogue and no communication with each other. And as a result of the idea that Cornel West came in and began to speak such negative things about President Obama. And Michael Eric Dyson took exception to that. So now there's this broad divide. Now both of them are definitely left of center. None of them are right wing. None of them are fundamental or conservative. They are both, raging radical liberals, and I love them both very dearly. But I do believe that there is an issue, and the issue has to do with this perception of Barack Obama from the view of Cornel West. And I believe Cornel West was wrong for that, and I think that he allowed his ego to get into the way, and I think that his ego continues to get in the way of being able to build a bridge between himself and Michael Dyson, his most popular student. Yeah,
that was really sad to witness. I was so angry with both of them. You had spoke about numbers. So, it's a lot of people putting rallies and protests together. My thought I used to march in LA, like for Trayvon justice, for all the Trayvons out there. And now I'm looking at the Republican Party, Trump. And I'm just wondering, they see thousands of people marching. Are they sitting back just laughing? Or what are your thoughts? It used to be seeing us in numbers had an impact. It would scare them. Like, oh no, the world is against us. We got to do something. We got to change. But now I feel like they just see it as their entertainment. Am I wrong? That's how I feel. So, I haven't been out there marching anymore. I was like, I got to find another vehicle, something, because the corns and the hurt feet, and I just feel like they're laughing.
Yeah. Well, Malika, I don't know whether or not they're laughing. They might be, but I do know this. I believe firmly that they do not take these mass demonstrations seriously or as a threat. They do not take the demonstrations as a threat. And when you think about the demonstrations that occurred shortly after Trump was elected, and especially the Women's March and subsequent women's marches that have taken place, I don't believe that Trump has ever addressed them. I don't believe that Trump has ever said, well, looks like I better get some leaders and sit down and talk and come to some kind of resolution to work out some kind of deal. The so-called master negotiator and mediator could give a doggone about negotiating with his own people who happen to be people of brown and tan and black and yellow skin. And so he doesn't care about negotiating with us. And I think that what substantiates that uncaring, and with the Republican Party in general, is that they actually have the numbers that are controlling everything in Washington right now. So they're controlling the executive branch, they're controlling the legislative branch, and for all practical purposes, they're supporting the judicial branch as well. So no matter how many demonstrations we put on, no matter how we flood the streets with masses of people, like we closed down the Dan Ryan a few weeks ago. Shout out to Father Flagler as well for helping make that happen. When it's all said and done, and policy has to be revised and rewritten, we don't have the numbers in the Senate. We don't have the numbers in the House. We don't have any support in the White House, and we can't win a majority on the United States Supreme Court. So until we make that change, and we're going to make it in November, because everybody that is 18 years old and older who are brown and black and yellow skin are going to make their way to the polls and vote, so that we can bring in this sweeping change. We need 24 seats in the House in order to effect a change for the majority of the Democrats to come in and take over. And of course, we only need a couple of changes in the Senate. So when that happens, that's when Donald Trump is going to recognize, if he's still in office, I hope he isn't, but if he's still in office, he's going to recognize he won't be able to get a single thing done until he brings people to the table and begins to negotiate in a civil manner on behalf of all people and not just white people.
Okay. And one last question. I know I gotta let you go. You're a busy man. When I'm at home and I'm watching Trump and I'm watching them make these decisions, I'm really sitting there thinking, does he even know what he's doing? I feel like he's being, a puppet. He's being told, given the wrong information, so he signs off thinking one thing and has no real understanding of what he's saying or doing. And then another side of me is saying, no, he's just bona fide to the core evil. This is who he is. What do you think? Is he an idiot or is he just evil?
Yeah. I want to say that. I want to put him together and say he's an evil idiot, But no, Donald Trump is not. He's not an idiot. I mean, he is. I think he's definitely above average intelligence. And
when it comes to business, but government,
right.
Running a corporation is different.
Absolutely, I agree. but what I would say, that malevolent side, when you talk about evil, when you measure somebody's intelligence or their IQ, and you say they're above average, that doesn't equate, Malika, to them being a good person. It doesn't equate to them being, they're really nice, or they're even going to make a positive impact on the world. That just means that they're intelligent. But if they do not have guiding principles, if they do not have a moral fabric that is woven into their personality and woven into their characteristic, if they don't have a set of values that have been taught to them from the time that they're a child, then that intelligence then becomes not a force for good, but it becomes a force for wrong and a force for evil. And I think that's what we see in Donald Trump, and I think that's what we see in all of the people that he has gathered around him, working in his administration. And for the most part, I think that's what we see in the Republican Party as well. So I think what we've got to do is we've got to stop measuring the level of a person's intelligence and education with a faulty barometer. It's not it's not a sign that they are going to be the ones to make the world a better place. And that's particularly true if they don't have those guiding principles of values that includes loving your neighbor as yourself. That includes being kind to the stranger instead of taking the stranger and putting them in cages and separating them from their mother and father. That I don't care how intelligent you are, that's an evil thing that has happened. And so I think people of goodwill, people who are in faith communities, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or Islam or another faith, or people that don't have any faith at all but are just good-hearted people, until we are able to begin to influence our elected officials and say we will not have that because that's wrong, because that dehumanizes that person, it takes away their dignity, it reduces their capacity to be a contributing citizen in our world. And so we're not going to allow that to happen until people of goodwill begin to influence them to change their ways. They're going to continue in the way that they're continuing right now. So yeah, he's smart, but he's also evil. And that's a dangerous combination.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Nabors.
Well, Malika, thank you.
I know that you won't be with us next Monday, but the following Monday, this is going to be regular. So I'm looking forward to it. And let me turn the camera around to people. So everybody that's watching right now, feel free to send in your questions. We're going to be doing this every Monday with Pastor Nabors. So if you have questions, I'm always coming with a question, a topic for him. But I see some of you, are watching. There's a comment here. I believe both theories, your theories. So feel free to hit us up with questions. He won't be on next Monday, but the Mondays after that, we're going to be regular and we're going to be live. So thank you, Pastor Nabors.
Malika,
and
thank you.
This has been great. Pastor Nabors is just awesome. So you all be sure to join us, not next Monday, but the following Monday for Nabors Speaks. Yes. And let's get down to some issues and hear this man's perspective. You see he's a phenomenal man. So thank you all. Evanston Live TV.